This story was so valuable and so wonderful and important to them and their culture that they pressed it into a bunch of pieces of clay. Like, this was not an easy or inexpensive process. And just like lovingly made these tiny little letters in the clay and stored it so that we could have it 3,000 years later.
Why was I in Minneapolis? I was at the first annual NerdCon Stories over the weekend, and in many ways it reminded me of the very first VidCon, which I feel very lucky to have attended. It was intimate and inspiring. I mostly stood in the corner avoiding eye contact and assuring myself that I had made a terrible mistake by being surrounded by so many people. It was an awesome time. So despite my insecurities, what was NerdCon about? Well, nobody really knew. This being the very first year, there was a lot of feeling it out. Does this work? Do you like that? How adorable can Patrick Rothfuss be? Spoiler alert, very. It was a celebration of stories and storytellers, but especially the ability to tell your own story. My own story was mostly me sleeping because of a hilarious misunderstanding of how to read a map, which caused me to walk 40 minutes each way to my Airbnb every day. In that time, I began to wonder just what the story of Minneapolis was. Who were these people I was passing every day? Well, I don't know, because I didn't ask them, but I can only assume that my gut feeling is correct and that they were all getting into wacky Three's Company-like shenanigans. What I was able to do was stumble across something called Minneapolis. It's a pun. It's funny and trust me, it's hilarious. I started there and broadened into the convention to ask the two questions that were on my mind. What is your favorite story, and why are stories important?
My favorite story is, and this isn't just self-centered, but I am really particularly fond of the story of my family and my own beginnings and the stuff that came before that, because it's crazy. It's really, really insane, and I probably won't tell it all. It's very long.
My favorite story is one that's not mine, but my grandpa tells it in a very slow way that I have to ask a bunch of questions to get the whole story. But basically the gist of the story is he was bored with his friends waiting for a bus and so he stole a farmer's cow and put it on the roof of some building. And apparently it was waking everybody up at night because it was just mooing nonstop, because you can lead a cow up, but it's hard to get a cow down. And then he tells about how the mayor got everybody like, we need to find this cow and we need to get him down. And so he's like, my grandpa said, well, I've got a good idea to get him down. We can just use a pulley system. And so he got the cow down, and him and his friends got it down, and they were hailed as like heroes for getting the cow down. But he never told them that he was the one that put the cow up there in the first place.
My favorite story is the story how I got pregnant with my son.
My favorite story is when my friend and I were in San Francisco for a music festival called Outside Lands, and we crowd surfed out of the festival, and I lost my wallet and he lost his phone. But we were still like so excited and had to catch the bus that we were just like running as we found each other and told each other this.
Which feeds into the second question, which is, why are stories important? Because there are so many lessons in them. They help us convey these things we've learned from ourselves or from other people, talking about, I mean, of course, it's always easiest to learn from your own mistakes or your own successes, but they give you a chance to learn from everybody else's as well, and that's really important.
Stories are important because that's what we are in the end.
Stories are important because that's how you connect with people, and I think that people are the most important thing. It's what makes living worth it, or like makes it, like gives you a reason.
Stories are important because they make us empathize with others, even though it's kind of our nature not to empathize with others.
They get all of these real life lessons when they read fiction or non-fiction or whatever. Hear stories from their mom's step-uncle, like, I mean, and that is, it brings us together and teaches us about life.
I tried answering that last question myself, but it was just a reiteration of what everyone else had said. Within those tiny replicas of Minneapolis, I felt there should be a truth, rather than misplaced pieces of chalk. But the truth is a funny thing. Everyone seems to have a different one. The most important message, said by most, but said most effectively for me from Desiree Birch and Dylan Marin, is that telling your own story is incredibly valuable. It not only allows you to express yourself, but allows others to sympathize, empathize, and connect. These vlogs that I've done for over 5 years are a document of my journey. And I believe that stories are important to tell because they allow the lonely inside to have some company. And they're important to consume because they allow me to understand somebody, if only for the briefest of moments. So I'm gonna ask those same 2 questions to you. What is your favorite story, and why are stories important? I'd love to hear the answer.
I got the pen in my hand, I'm a writer, goddamn, and you gotta listen to me. He said, you asshole. I'll listen to you. Should be listening to me instead. See, I'm a railroad man, and if I were real, I would separate your face from your head. Oh, goddammit, I cried. You've pushed me too far. Gonna show you I can do what I please. So an earthquake came and it shook the whole terrain, knocked Railroad Bill to his knees.
Thanks for watching. My name is Kyle. I upload videos every Thursday. Every week, sort of, I also co-host a podcast called Whatever This Is. You can find a link to that in all of my social media down in the description below. I've already asked you some questions. Let me know your answers down in the comments, a place where stories can drag and there are continual retcons.